This hour, we're going to talk about the work and open and shut case by Robert Joling and Philip von Prague. Robert, of course, is a World War II veteran of the Pacific Theater of Operations, practiced law before the Wisconsin Supreme Court and the Eastern and Western Federal District Courts in 1951 and the Arizona Federal District Court in 72. During the 57 years that Bob has been licensed to practice law, he's spent more than 50 years in the promotion of forensic sciences. We're going to talk about his work and open and shut case. Robert, thanks for coming on the program.
You're welcome.
Now, let's go back a little bit. 1968, June 5th. Robert Kennedy gunned down at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. A person identified as Sirhan Sirhan is wrestled to the ground, later convicted as the man solely responsible for Kennedy's murder. Of course, lots of doubts lingered at the time, still do, Robert. But tell us about your work now, an open and shut case.
Well, my work began in the February following the assassination, in February of 1969. At a meeting of the annual session of the American Academy of Forensic Sciences, Dr. William G. Eckert, a forensic pathologist from Wichita, Kansas, asked me to come to his room in the Drake Hotel in Chicago. And I went there at his invitation, and when I arrived in his room, Dr. Thomas Noguchi, who was the coroner medical examiner of Los Angeles, was there also. And he presented to me his autopsy protocol, which he had written following his autopsy of Senator Robert F. Kennedy, who had been shot in the pantry of the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles on the morning of June 5, 1968. I read the autopsy protocol, and it was probably the most thorough, most competently written autopsy protocol I had ever seen up to that time or ever since. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Noguchi said in the autopsy protocol that the bullet that struck Senator Kennedy had entered the skull approximately 1/4 of an inch away from the skull and about 1 inch behind the right earlobe. In addition, he found embedded in the skull black soot powder, or residue from the firing of a .22 caliber revolver. That indicated that he was correct in his determination that the gun had been held in very close proximity to the skull when the fatal bullet was fired into the brain of Senator Kennedy. In addition to that, in the autopsy protocol, you find reference to 3 other bullets that struck either the body of the senator or went through the upper portion of his suit coat. 2 of those bullets entered his body, one coming to rest at the cervical spine, C6, and the other going out from his back, out the front of his chest into a ceiling tile above the location and behind the location where Sirhan was standing. The other bullet that went through his suit coat at the very top portion of it did not strike his body, but it also went into the ceiling tiles above. In addition to that, it was interesting to note in the autopsy protocol that it referred to the bullets traveling from right to left at a steep angle upward. And later on, in 1975, when there was a reinvestigation of the firearms evidence, it was found that 3 of the bullets that were fired that night that had entered the bodies of victims, one from Senator Kennedy, that was the neck bullet, one into the buttocks of Ira Goldstein, and one into the belly of William Wiesel, had identification characteristics that indicated these 3 bullets had come from the same gun. Because the 4 bullets that were fired into Senator Kennedy's body or clothing, because they had come from behind and to the right of Senator Kennedy, that meant that the other 2 bullets also came from that direction, or a total of 6. Interestingly, Sirhan had come from the, let's see, that was the eastern edge of the tray stacker next to the ice machines in the pantry, and had run over towards the steam tables in the middle of the room. And And as he got there, his pathway was blocked by the maitre d', who was Carl Euchre. And next to Carl Euchre was Edward Menasian, and next to him there was a man by the name of Lubick. The entire distance between the steam tables and the ice machines was only 6 feet to 3 inches. These three persons blocked any possibility of Sirhan getting past their location. And when Sirhan was right in front of Carl Euchre, he was pinned against the first steam table, and he fired his gun twice. First bullet hitting Paul Schrade in the head, and Paul immediately fell unconscious on the floor. Where the second bullet went, nobody knows. There was a slight pause at that moment as Carl Euchre reached up and with his left hand grabbed the firing hand, the right hand of Sirhan, and put his right arm around the head of Sirhan and put him into a hammerlock and forced him upon the top of the steam table. Ed Menasian, in the meantime, grabbed the legs of Sirhan, and Sirhan remained on top of that steam table until he was later put into custody. He still kept on firing his gun, however, and in the process, besides hitting Paul Schrade, he hit a man by the name of Ira Goldstein in the shin, and he hit Elizabeth Evans by a ricochet bullet off the floor into her forehead. The bullet was going upward in her forehead, and therefore we know that it had to come from the floor and not from the ceiling.
Right, right.
As a result, we now had 6 bullets from Kennedy's position and 3 more from other victims, meaning there were 9 fired shots just into victims. In addition to that, there were 2 bullet holes in the center divider between swinging doors at the very westerly edge of the pantry. And that was the doors through which the Kennedy entourage had entered into the pantry. There were also 2 other bullet holes in the door jamb to the left, and there was another bullet in the door jamb of the door leading to the stage. So we had an additional 5 bullets right there that had to be accounted for. That's 14.
And Sirhan's gun only had the capacity for 8 shots, right? That's
correct. His gun was an 8-shot Ivor Johnson 22 caliber revolver. So then the question became, well, where did these shots come from? A runner for one of the TV stations by the name of Donald Schumann, in a very convoluted statement afterwards, immediately following the shooting, said that the guard had pulled his gun and fired it 3 times and hit the senator all 3 times. The investigating unit of the LAPD told him he was wrong. And after that, Vince Bugliosi and I talked to Don Schumann in 1975 at great length at his home in Simi, California, and Schumann did not deviate from the statement he had made originally. He admitted that his statement was convoluted, and it was an excited utterance following a very exciting episode that he had witnessed, but nevertheless he said he saw the guard pull his gun, fire 3 times, and hit the senator all 3 times. He hasn't strayed from that statement.
Who was the guard, Robert?
The guard was Thane Eugene Cesar. He's presently over in the Philippines. He was a guard for the night, hired from Ace Guard Service. It was his first time he'd ever been on guard duty, and as he said afterwards, it was the last time he'll ever be on one. And later he divorced his wife and moved to the Philippines, where he's now residing.
Has anybody ever questioned him after this?
Yes,
after the fact?
There have been people who have gone over to talk to. I never have, but I know people who have talked with him. Now, interestingly, when the guard gave a statement after or following the incident, he said that he had gotten the powder residue in his face. I have to understand that the guard was about behind Senator Kennedy, and Senator Kennedy was about 4 feet away from Sirhan. So at least 6 feet away from Sirhan. There is no way that any blowback from Sirhan's gun could ever get into the face of this guard.
No. Now, did the guard admit that he fired his gun?
Well, he has never admitted it, but other people have said they saw him pull his gun and fire it also. 3 people have said that.
Because my first thought, Robert, is did he fire it thinking, oh my gosh, yeah, somebody's firing at Senator Kennedy, and he just shot willy-nilly all over the place? I guess that would be my first question.
In fairness to him, it's not proper for us to say that